That time of year when our good folks on the PGA Tour have to start worrying about making the playoffs and keeping their card. Terrifying. Let's tee it up.
Welcome to Data Access Golf, your home for rapid golf improvement. And now, from the thin air of the Rocky Mountains, next on the number one tee, your host, Aaron Stewart.
Hey everyone, Aaron Stewart with Data Access Golf, the podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Yeah, we've got a tournament starting up tomorrow, the John Deere, which is an awesome one. Lots of cool memories from there and lots of... Steve Stricker comes to mind when you think of the John Deere. Obviously, Jordan Spieth comes to mind when you think of the John Deere. Some cool stuff happened there for sure. And it's always right. It seems to be right before a major. And now you've got the British Open starting next week after. And so those that, I think they'll have a nice jet for those that finish the... I think that John Deere has always kind of done that, right? They've got this jet lined up for anybody who's going to the British Open, and they'll rush them on over to try to get as many as possible, play with them. So pretty interesting stuff. And so I wanted to take some time here to kind of look at the rest of the year because we're getting down to it. If you look at what we've got the John Deere this week. Next week, you've got the British Open. They've got here the Open Championship, but we're not going to say that. We're really looking forward to this one at Royal Portrush that's only had the British Open at it one other time. I guess it's sort of kind of out in the sticks. There's not a lot around. So as far as like where you stay and all that, but I think for Graham McDowell and for Rory and all this, they kind of made it happen. So very cool. But we've got the sort of the offshoot Barbasol Championship at, it looks like Keene Trace Golf Club in Nicholsville, Kentucky, going on at the same time next week. And then we've got the World Golf Championship, the FedEx St. Jude Invitational in Memphis. And at the same time, we've got now the Barracuda, the World Golf Championships. We've also got another, what do they call those? Sort of the non-World Golf Championship PGA Tour. What's the word for that? I can't even remember it. It's the, I don't know. But anyway, less FedEx Cup points, kind of less, a lot less going on there with that. But still FedEx Cup points, right? So you've got the Barracuda Championship and the World Golf Championship the week after the British Open and the Barbasol. And then we've got the Wyndham Championship, the Northern Trust, the BMW Championship, and the Tour Championship. So the Northern Trust, the BMW Championship, and the Tour Championship, that's the playoffs. So the last one in there's the Wyndham Championship, right? That's it. That gets you your last 500 points. Oh, it's got them right here. So this is cool. Okay, so if you win the Barbasol if you win the John Deere, you pick up your 500 FedEx Cup points. If you win the Barbasol the next week, you pick up 300. And the Open from the British Open, you pick up 600. For the World Golf Championships, it's 550 FedEx Cup points. For the Barracuda, it's 300 FedEx Cup points for the winner. And then the Wyndham Championship, the last regular season tour event, 500, the standard 500 points. Then when you get into the Northern Trust, the first playoff event, 2,000 points to the winner. And the BMW Championship, 2,000 points to the winner. They're doing it a little differently this time, right? It'll be interesting to see how those points shake out, for sure, where you've got everybody sort of playing off, not par, but playing off, where essentially your score, you'll know if you won or not at the end of the tournament instead of them running a bunch of numbers trying to figure it out, right? So what is that? So where does that put us? Well, if we look at the FedEx Cup right now, the top 10 include Matt Kuchar, Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy, Xander Schauffele, Gary Woodland, Patrick Cantlay, Dustin Johnson, Paul Casey, Justin Rose, and Ricky Fowler. Those are your top 10. The Wyndham Rewards top 10. And then we've got some of the folks that we would expect. Brent Snedeker's inside the top 30. That gets you in the Tour Championship. I didn't know he played that well. Some of the other surprises here. Sung Jae is in the top 30. I was surprised by that. Charles Howell has won, so not surprised by that. And then you've got in the top 70, right on the bubble, there's Jonathan Vegas, which I thought was pretty interesting. I thought he played a lot better. But now you're getting into those that are less than the top 70, so barely in the playoffs, and the top 125 make the Northern Trust. You've got Jordan Spieth in that group at 72. You've got Bubba Watson in this group. You've got Henrik Stenson in this group. So they're in the playoffs, but they're only qualified for the first event. You've got, Adam Badley is one of those in there. So pretty interesting group of folks. I didn't think Nick Watney was anywhere close to any of this, but he is played 23 events. And so he is in this. He will make the playoffs this year. Peter Uihlein, who we haven't seen much of, he's going to make the playoffs. Daniel Berger, who's coming off an injury, he's going to make the playoffs. Kyle Stanley, he'll make the playoffs. But then these guys, Pat Perez, also an injury, he'll make the playoffs. But if they don't play well at the Northern Trust, that's it for them. They won't make the BMW Championship. And those that won't even make the Northern Trust, right? These are those that will are at great risk. Zach Sucher, who'd had that really good tournament, he's only played in 6 events. But he is at 130 right now. So he's got to have something good to get him even into the playoffs. You've got some folks that are a little like Harris English. He is at 138th. Jimmy Walker at 139th. Zach Johnson at 140. These are folks that aren't going to make the playoff. These are names that we've gotten used to. Roberto Castro at 143. Jonathan Bird at 144. I thought that he played better this year and that I'd seen him on a few leaderboards, but I guess not. How about this? This is a FedEx Cup winner. Bill Haas at 155. Okay, he's played in 19 events. So some of these I expected they hadn't been playing very much. You've got, I'm trying to see the one who's played the most events that's not in. It looks like Tom Hogue has played in, Tom Hogue he's played in 28 events and he sits at 165th. Ollie Snyderjans has played in 26 events at 173rd. So, Chris Kirk, Davis Love III. He's only played in 9 events. Kevin Chappell has got to be hurt, right? He's played in 3 events. He's at 186th. Stuart Sink, 182. Charles Schwartzel, 183. Luke Donald, 184. Sam Saunders. Hunter Mahan, 176. Billy Hurley III, 197th. Golf is hard, folks. James Hahn, right? PXG, 201st. Oh, my word. Steve Stricker has only played in 7 events, 210. Boo Weekley has only played in 6 events. We haven't heard much of him. He's at 211. He won't make the playoffs. No way there. So, you've got Michael Kim. He's played in 24 events, 221st. So anyway, just amazing here for me to look at all these names and see how many are not going to make the playoffs. Could be pretty interesting. Then you've got a big group that if they don't play well, they're not going to make the BMW. Jordan Spieth, Luke List, Wyndham Clark, Bubba Watson, Brandon Grace. Wyndham was right there and went up from 99th spot to 77th, but that still doesn't get him into the playoffs. So some very interesting things about folks coming up. If these folks don't get it done, we're going to have some people that we're very used to. If they don't have some sort of conditional status on the tour, they're going to be gone and back down trying to get their cards back. And that could be really, really interesting. As far as those, I don't know if anybody here pays attention to the web.com tour, not the web.com anymore. It's the Korn Ferry. The Korn Ferry Tour now, I think, is what they're calling it. Yes, the Korn Ferry Tour. But if you look at the ratings there, you've got the top 25 that will get their cards for the Korn Ferry Tour. And it's interesting to see how that's shaking up, because there's not a lot there that, what's the way to put it? There's not a lot there that you've probably heard of, honestly, if you look at the top 25. So sometimes we go up and we see some folks that have tried on the PGA Tour, have kind of lost their card, and then they've sort of worked their way back up to where they're going to qualify and be back on tour. But if you look at the top 25 here, I don't recognize one name that was on tour previously that, we welcome back. And, you look like an Eric Compton. He's 35th right now. A Zach Blair, who's been on the tour, he's at 38th right now, though he did make a jump from 53rd to 38th recently. Zach Sucher, right, who was trying to get it going there on tour and is not quite in the playoffs. He's at 44th on the web.com tour. So not a lot of folks here that we're used to seeing. So a lot of new faces will be on the tour next year, no question about it. And it'll be interesting to see how they do. I'm going down through this sheet right here, and I can't see anybody that I recognize in the top 100. So golf is changing. Golf is tough. Hard to keep your card, and a great amount of new faces going to show up next year. No question about it. There's just no way around it at all. So anyway, that just sort of a quick little view at what's going on and this bubble. We've got the bubble coming up pretty quickly, and with a World Golf Championship and a major still to go, and then one full field event at the Wyndham. That's it. That's all there is to it. So as far as tomorrow goes, if anybody's looking to watch the John Deere Classic and what groups are looking to be, I think some really, really good folks to pay attention to for sure. So those that they've got on the, those that they've got as far as the featured groups, there it is. I'm sorry, I got sort of messed up. You've got some interesting ones to follow for sure. We've talked a little bit about Matt Wolff. So you've got Cameron Champ, Daniel Berger in one of the featured groups. You've got Wolff, right? Matt Wolff, the 9th youngest winner on tour. He's in one of the featured groups in the morning. And then you've got Howell and Tway. And then in the afternoon groups, you've got Nate Lashley, Jonathan Vega, who needs a good week. He's in the playoffs, but he's not in the Tour Championship for sure. And Ryan Palmer, followed by Zach Johnson, who we know is not in the playoffs at all. He needs a good week. And Brian Harmon as well. So as far as other featured groups, this isn't quite as awesome as we've seen recently, but definitely a lot to play for in these guys, and we'll see how it turns up. As far as folks in the tournament, just kind of scanning down through it, you've got Ben Crane, who's Ollie Snyder-Jans, who we just talked about, who's not going to make the playoffs. Sam Saunders is not going to make the playoffs unless they do something great. Stuart Sink, not going to make the playoffs unless he goes crazy. Nick Watney and Daniel Berger will make the playoffs, but not by much. You've got Charles Howell, who won earlier this year, who's qualified for the British. He'll be on that jet. Lucas Glover will be on the jet as a previous major winner. Morikawa will be on the jet. No, he won't be. I thought that he qualified last year, but I guess he didn't. Anyway, so we've got a lot to play for this week. but there's just not a lot of big names that were. Jonathan Bird's not going to make the playoffs unless he goes crazy. Bill Haas not going to make the playoffs. Anyway, so we've got a lot of folks this week that are scrambling like crazy to try to make the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be a crazy last month for sure, folks, and it'll be fun to get started at the John Deere tomorrow morning. So until then, Aaron Stewart saying better data always means better golf, and now is a fascinating time for the Bubble Boys on the PGA Tour. Till next time, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for listening to Data Access Golf with Aaron Stewart. Check us out online at dataaccessgolf.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.